Welcome back. Yeah. What up, y'all? All right. I guess we just lost almost. Uh, anyways, so as you know, I'm not gonna eat up too much more time. No more than 3 minutes. At the length. Oh man, I'm bleeding. Cut my leg wide open. Anyways, 3 minutes, pretty much for the intro for every one of these. So as you guys know, I brought out my journal. This ain't just for show. This is like back from 2024. you know, different seasons of life, using it for different things. This is from the last stream, and then we're gonna pick up where we left off. Hopefully this will be under. I'm gonna wrap it up under an hour. And so, as of right now, if you're watching this right now, just skip ahead to the 3 minute mark, and that's where we get started. So for those that are new to this series, I'm probably gonna compile all these together, and basically what I'm doing is reading offline, and I'll re-upload these at one time. I'm gonna be honest, I got a little bit of inspiration from Kai Cenat. Surprisingly, you can find inspiration in random people. He had a channel that he uploaded on YouTube where he was just reading amongst himself, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Why not do that for myself? I read offline all the time, a part of the summer reading program for myself and my little ones and others, stuff like that. So I figure why not do a little be a little more creative, get out in nature, get away, and force yourself to read. So if you guys like this, go ahead and slap the like, hit the subscribe if you're new, drop a comment. Let me know what your favorite part of this is. Please engage in the comment section. I do appreciate any and all comments. And yeah, today we're celebrating July 4th, you know. So in honor of, 250, I'm gonna sit on this coat because this wooden bench is pretty hard, boy. Feeling like 1776 under your butt, let me tell you. All right, so we've hit the 3 minute mark. Let's go ahead and get it started. Daniel Goleman's Focus. The Anatomy of Attention. Basics. Okay. We have our pen, paper ready. Any words that we get tripped up on, we'll look them up and we'll add them in a short section. Okay. Thank you for your time. I do appreciate you. As a teenager, I got into the habit of listening to the string quartets of Bella Bartok. Don't know who that is. Maybe it might be worth listening to in my own spare time, which I found slightly cacophonous. I had to look this up because I was reading ahead the other day. This has to do with a loud, obnoxious tone when it comes to music. Slightly, I think I'm saying it right, cacophonous, but still enjoyed while doing my homework. Somehow tuning out those discordant tones. Boy, they hitting us with a lot of words, ain't they? I know what discord is, but discordant. I'm gonna put tones. Sometimes it's good to add other words for context. Um, you know, somehow tuning out discordant tones helped me focus on, say, the chemical equation of ammonium hydroxide. When would you ever need to know that? Just so you guys know, it's going to take us a while to get through these pages, just because there's a lot of things of interest in Daniel Goleman's books. A lot of things that branch off different subject matters and different talking points that are just like, okay, I'm unfamiliar with that. Why not write it down and learn? And you can do the same. Actually, this within view so you guys can see. Okay. Let's see. Years later, I found myself writing articles on Deadline from the New York Times. I remembered that early drill in ignoring Bortok. At the Times, I labored away in the midst of the science desk, which in those years occupied a classroom-sized cavern into which were crammed desks for the dozen or so science. Damn, I should put on some bug spray, boy. Or so science journalists and half a dozen editors. And if you see me leaning to the side, I'm gonna keep it 100, bro. Drinking straight watermelon juice for like a week, and boy, it's tearing your insides up. But your boy's down to 170, 77. Okay, we're trying to get down to sub 170. This is off top. If you guys are watching this, clearly you're watching this for me. So I'm just giving you an update. Anyways, let's get back to the book. Let's see. I'm trying to make sure I'm keeping my silhouette. It's the visuals. Trying to keep the silhouette in the screen. Hopefully, this uploads in the same quality. Wouldn't it be unfortunate if this came in like poor quality? Like right now, it's like 10. Anyways, it's like 1040p right now, but it's probably gonna upload 720. But whatever. There was always a Bortok-ish hum of cacophony. There we go, the cacophonous. Um, Nearby, there might be three or four people chatting. You'd overhear the near end of a phone conversation, or several, as reporters interviewed sources. Editors shouted across the room to ask when an article would be ready. There were rarely, if ever, sounds of silence. And yet, we science writers, myself among them, would reliably deliver our ready to edit copyright on time, day after day. No one ever pleaded, "Everyone, please be quiet," so we could concentrate. We all just redoubled our focus, tuning out the roar. That focus in the midst of a din indicates selective attention. The neural capacity to beam in on just one target while ignoring a staggering sea of incoming stimuli, each one a potential focus in itself. That is what William James, a founder of modern psychology, meant when he defined attention as the sudden taking the sudden taking possession by mind, the sudden taking possession by the mind in clear and vivid form of one of what seems several simultaneously possible objects or trains of thought. I'm going to read that again because I definitely chopped it up Aki style. You dig? The sudden taking, the sudden taking possession by the mind in clear and vivid form of one of what seem several simultaneously possible objects or trains of thought by William James. There are two main varieties of distractions: sensory and emotional. These bugs are sensory, let me tell you. The sensory distractors are easy as you read these words. You're tuning out of the blank margins surrounding the text. Okay. Your sensory directors are easy. As you read these words, you're tuning out the blank margin surrounding the text. Or notice for a moment the feeling of your tongue against your upper palate, just one of the endless waves of incoming stimuli your brain weeds out from the conscious or from the continuous wash of background sounds, shapes and colors, tastes, smells, and sensations, and on and on. More daunting is the second variety of lures, emotionally loaded signals. While you might find it easy to concentrate on answering your email in the hubbub of your local coffee shop, if you should overhear someone mention your name, potent emotional bait, that. Potent emotional bait, that. It's almost impossible to tune out the voice that carries it. Your attention reflexively alerts to hear what's being said about you. Forget that email. The biggest challenge for even the most focused, though, comes from the emotional turmoil of our lives. Boy, my arm was getting tired. I might have to prop this thing up because shit, my damn arthritis. You know what I'm saying? Damn carpal tunnel was kicking in. Let me just do a quick scan. You know how we do, What time is it? Every 10 minutes, do a little smoky you out there? Because them black bears be popping up on your boy. More than I'd like to admit. Let's see. So forget that email. The biggest challenge for even the most focused, though, comes from the emotional turmoil of our lives, like a recent blow up in a close relationship that keeps intruding into your thoughts. Such thoughts barge in for a good reason, to get us to think through what to do about what's upsetting us. The dividing line between fruitless rumination and productive reflection lies in whether or not we come up with some tentative solution or insight and then can let those distressing thoughts go. Or if, on the other hand, we just keep obsessing over the same loop of worry. I'm just going to put rumination. I know what ruminating means, kind of like to dwell on, but it doesn't hurt to, like I said, I write some of these down because in, in, um, just in common, like conversations that I have with people, a lot of these terms don't come up, right? And whose fault is that? You know, it's like when you have what good is knowledge if you don't share it? Like what good is wisdom if you don't share it? So I fault myself more so than I fault the person that I'm interacting with because every conversation you have an opportunity to reach deep within your the vault and express yourself in a creative manner. All right. Let's see, where was I? The more our focus gets disrupted, the worse we do. Hence these bugs. For instance, a test of how college athletes are prone to having their concentration disrupted by anxiety correlates significantly with how well or poorly they will perform in the upcoming season. That's a good point. The ability to stay steady on one target and ignore everything else operates in the brain's prefrontal regions. Specialized circuitry in this area boost the strength of incoming signals we want to concentrate on, that email, and dampens down those we choose to ignore, those people chattering away at the next table, or the cars that continuously drive by. You would think you would hear somebody sneak up on you, but nah. I just know, look, my only hope is getting up in this tree. You know what I'm saying? I could have sat at another table, but you know what I'm saying? I just need a little bit of time to just assess. You know what I'm saying? Let me get up in this tree and yell, help. Anyways, since focus demands we tune out our emotional distractions, our neural wiring for selective attention includes that for inhibiting emotion. Let me read that again. Since focus demands we tune out our emotional distractions, our neural wiring for selective attention includes that for inhibiting emotion. Ah, okay. That means those that focus best are relatively immune to emotional turbulence, more able to stay unflappable in a crisis and to keep on an even keel despite life's emotional waves. I like that. Failure to drop one focus or move on to others can, for example, leave the mind lost in repeating loops of chronic anxiety. At clinical extremes, it means being lost in helplessness. I'm sorry. I'll read it again. At clinical extremes, it means being lost in helplessness, hopelessness, and self pity in depression or panic or catastrophizing in anxiety disorders or countless repetitions of ritualistic thoughts or acts. Touch the door 50 times before leaving was an example they gave. In obsessive compulsive disorder. The power to disengage our attention from one thing and move it to another is essential for well being. I wonder if any of these things resonate with you. Are you any of these examples that are being mentioned? Do you dwell, in catastrophizing? The stronger our selective attention, the more powerfully we can stay absorbed to do. Get swept away by a moving scene in a film or find a powerful poetry passage exhilarating. Strong focus lets people lose themselves in YouTube or their homework to the point of being oblivious to whatever tumult might be nearby. I've heard the term tumultuous, but I've never read tumult. And again, I'm just going to iterate this. I'll probably be doing this in the first couple of videos of this just for the people that are getting used to it. There's a thing that I would just describe as we know a lot the things that we know, many of those were never properly or formally learned. So you may have context in terms of how to say tumultuous, right? But you don't know the actual definition or the proper context that it's applicable in. Where some people use a term very vaguely, um, and sometimes it's completely misused. So that's why we write it down, because later on we're going to read it back, create shorts from it, and then we're just going to, do like word of the day for people. So, okay, tumult. Where was I? Strong focus lets people lose themselves in YouTube or their homework to the point of being oblivious to whatever tumult might be nearby, or their parents calling them to come eat dinner. You can spot the focused folks at a party. They are able to immerse themselves in conversation, their eyes locked on the other person as they stay fully absorbed in their words, despite that speaker next to them blaring the Beastie Boys. The unfocused, in contrast, are in continual play, their eyes gravitating to whatever might grab them, their attention adrift. Richard Davison, a neuroscientist at the University of Wisconsin, names focus as one of a handful of essential life abilities, each based in a separate neural system that guide us through the turbulence of our inner lives, our relationships, and whatever challenges life brings. During sharp focus, Davison finds key circuitry in the prefrontal cortex gets into a synchronized state with the object of that beam of awareness, the state he calls phase locking. If people are focused on pressing the button each time they hear a certain note, the electrical signals in their prefrontal area fire precisely in sync with the target sound. The better you focus, the stronger your neural lock-in. But if instead of concentration, there's a jumble of thoughts, synchrony vanishes. Just such a drop in synchrony marks people with attention deficit disorder, allegedly. There's a couple reference points to probably references that they are alluding to. When they put the small numbers in the text, and then you just basically have to go back to the back of the book and be like, oh, okay, okay, you did some research. I see, I see. Okay, okay, you wasn't just making that up. It's in the notes. Okay. Chapter one, as an example. Okay. Okay. Yeah. In the basics, number seven, talking about ADHD. Okay. In such studies, that brains of people with ADHD exhibit far less activity in their prefrontal area and show less phase lock and synchrony. A.M. Kelly said this in her recent advances in structural and functional brain and uh, imaging studies of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder in her book Behavioral and Brain Functions back in 2008. That's what we talking about. Okay. So, anyways, we learn best with focused attention. As we focus on what we are learning, the brain maps that information on what we already know, making new neural connections. If you and a small toddler share attention towards something, as you name it, the toddler learns that name. In her focus, if her focus wanders as you say it, she won't. When our mind wanders, When our mind wanders, here comes somebody pulling up. When our mind wanders, our brain activities host a brain circuits. Okay, I'm getting a little distracted. Speaking of when your mind wanders off, when our mind wanders off, our brain activities, when, sorry, I'm being distracted right now. Somebody behind me. When our mind wanders, our brain activates a host of brain circuits that chatter among things that have nothing to do with what we're trying to learn. Lacking focus, we store no crisp memory of what we're learning. And hence, the book is focus. The book is talking about basics. And now the book is alluding to zoning out. Time for a quick quiz. What's the technical term for brain wave synchrony with a sound you hear? I don't know. What are two main varieties of distraction? What aspects of attention predicts how well college athletes perform? If you can answer these off the top of your head, you've been sustaining focused attention while you read. The answers were in the last few pages and can be found at the bottom of this page. So, the first answer was phase locking. What's the term for brainwave synchrony with a sound you hear? Phase locking. What are two main varieties of distraction, sensory and emotional? And then the third question is what aspect of attention predicts how well college athletes perform? How well the athletes can concentrate and ignore distractions. Hence what we're doing. There's an individual behind us right now, and their vehicle's still running. So I'm just trying to figure out what are y'all doing. I'm not going to turn around because I'm focused, and this is what this series is about. If you can answer these spots off the top of your head, you've been sustaining focus and attention while you read. Okay. If you can't recall the answers, you may have been zoning out from time to time while you read, and you're not alone. A reader's mind typically wanders anywhere from 20 to 40% of the time while perusing a text. I've used the term perusing. I understand it in context, but the cost for students, not surprisingly, is that the more wandering, the worse their comprehension. Seems like a direct correlation to me. Even when our minds are not wandering, if the text turns into gibberish like we must make some circus for the money instead of we must make some money for the circus, about 30% of the time, readers continue reading along for a significant stretch, an average of 17 words, before catching it. As we read a book, a blog, or a narrative, our mind constructs a mental model that lets us make sense of what we are reading and connects it to the universe of such models we already hold that bear on the same topic. This expanding web of understanding lies at the heart of learning. The more we zone out while building that web, and the sooner the lapse after we begin reading, the more holes. We read a book, our mind constructs a network of pathways. When we read a book, our mind constructs a network of pathways that embodies that set of ideas and experiences. Contrast that deep comprehension with the interruptions and distractions that typify the ever seductive internet. I'm gonna write typify down. Typify. If it's not type, maybe it's typify. That typify the ever seductive internet. The bombardment of texts, videos, images, and miscellaneous of messages we get online seems the enemy of the more full understanding that comes from what Nicholas Carr calls deep reading, which requires sustained concentration and immersion in a topic rather than hopscotching from one to another, nabbing disconnected factoids. As education migrates onto web based formats, the danger looms that the multimedia mass of distractions we call the internet will hamper learning. Way back in the 1950s, the philosopher Martin Heidegger warned against a looming tide of technological revolution that might so captive, bewitch, dazzle, and beguile man that calculate thinking someday come to be the only way of thinking. I'm going to read that again. So, the philosopher Martin Heidegger warned against the looming tide of technological revolution that might so captive, bewitch, dazzle, and beguile man that calculative thinking may someday be the only way of thinking that would come at the loss of meditative thinking, a mode of reflection he saw as the essence of our humanity. I hear Heidegger's warning in terms of the erosion of an ability at the core of reflection, the capacity to sustain attention to an ongoing narrative. Deep thinking demands sustaining a focused mind. The more distracted we are, the more shallow our reflections. Likewise, the shorter our reflections, the more trivial they are likely to be. Heidegger, were he alive today, would be horrified if asked to tweet. Has attention shrunk? Okay. We're trying to push through this. We have a lot of distractors in the background, but we're doing our best. Has attention shrunk? There's a swing band from Shanghai playing lounge music in a crowded Swiss convention hall with hundreds of people milling about. In the midst of the manic throng, I'm just going to put throng. Kind of glad. Okay. Kind of glad those guys are gone because there's a lot going on in the background. I'm really set on not giving them any attention in terms of staying focused on my goal, which is to get through this chapter. Okay, so in the midst of the manic throng, bugs everywhere, standing stock still at a small circular bar table, Clay Shirky has zoned in to his laptop and is typing furiously. I met Clay, a New York University-based social media maven. Don't know what a maven is? Maven. Maybe I should start spelling these for y'all so y'all can look it up too. Some years back, but rarely have the chance to see him in the flesh. For several minutes, I'm standing about 3 feet away from Clay, off to his right, watching him, positioned in his peripheral vision. If he had any attention bandwidth to spare, but Clay takes no notice until I speak his name. Then, startled, he looks up and we start chatting. Attention is a limited capacity. Clay's rapt concentration. But we got a lot of words today. Rapt, R-A-P-T. I know a rapt. Yeah, he rapped that song. Nah, bruh. Rapt. Clay's rapt concentration fills that full bore until he shifts to me. 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information have been taken. What? 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information has been taken as the upper limit of the beam of attention since the 1950s when George Miller proposed what he called his magical number in one of psychology's most influential papers. Okay, so that's what that is. 7 plus or minus 2. More recently, though, some cognitive scientists have argued that 4 chunks is the upper limit. Okay. That caught the public's limited attention for a brief moment anyway, as the new meme spread that this mental capacity had shrunk from 7 to 4 bits of information. Mind's limit found 4 bits of information. One science news site proclaimed. Okay, so we're just trying to follow along with what they're saying. Essentially, what they're saying is that the chunks of information that is the human bandwidth at the time, it was 7 ± 2. Okay, and then an article came out, and then it said that it was essentially 4 bits of information only, which was the mental capacity. It has shrunk. Okay, I was like, some of this is like hard to read aloud without like having a process. Again, zoning out. Some took the presumed downsizing of what we can hold in mind as an indictment of the distractedness of everyday life in the 21st century. De- Decreeing, I'm not sure if that's decreeing or decrying. It's like DE cry and then ing, decrying, maybe decreeing. Okay, decrying the shrinking of this crucial mental ability, but they misinterpret the data. Working memory hasn't shrunk, said Justin Hal Berta, a cognitive scientist at Johns Hopkins University. It's not the case that TV has made our working memory smaller. There's a big fly on the table. That in the 1950s, we all had an upper limit of 7 plus or 2 minus bits of information, and now we only have 4. The mind tries to make the most of its limited resources, Alberta explained. So we use memory strategies to help, say combining different elements like 4, 1, and 5 into a single chunk, right? Such as the area code 415. When we when we perform a memory task, the result might be 7 plus or minus 2 bits. What? But that breaks down into a fixed limit of 4 plus 3 or 4 more that memory strategies add. Both 4 and 7 are right, depending on how you measure it. We're going to get through this. Then there's what people think of as splitting attention in multitasking, which cognitive science tells us is a fiction too. Rather than having a stretchable balloon of attention to deploy in tandem, we have a narrow, fixed pipeline to a lot. Instead of splitting it, we actually switch rapidly. Continual switching saps attention from full, concentrated engagement. Okay. The most precious resource in a computer system is no longer its processor, memory, disk, or network, but rather human attention. A research group at Carnegie Mellon or Milan University notes the solution they propose to this human bottleneck hinges on minimizing distractions. Project Aura proposes to do away with bothersome system glitches so we don't waste time in hassles. The goal of a hassle free computing system is laudable. So I've used lauded on EPRs, right? It's really just like to be praised, but we're gonna look this one up too. This solution, however, may not get us that far. This solution, however, may not get us that far. It's not a technological fix we need, but a cognitive one. The source of distractions is not so much in the technology we use, as in the frontal assault on our focusing ability from the mounting tide of distractions. Which gets me back to Clay Shirky, the guy he was talking about in the, I think in the Swedish Hall. Um, was it the Swedish Hall? Swiss Convention Hall, particularly on his research on social media. While none of us can focus on everything at once, all of us together create a collective bandwidth of attention that we each can access as needed. Witness Wikipedia. As Shirky proclaims in his book, Here Comes Everybody, attention can be seen as a capacity distributed among many people, as can memory or cognitive expertise. What's trending now? Indexes how we are allotting our collective attention. While some argue that our tech facilitated learning and memory dumb us and learning and memory dumb us down, there's also a case to be made that they create a mental prosthesis that expands the power of individual attention. Hmm. Our social our social capital, a range of attention, increases as we up the number of social ties through which we gain crucial information. A tacit knowledge. I feel like I've looked up tacit before. Like tacit knowledge of how things work here, whether in an organization or in a neighborhood. Casual acquaintances can be extra sets of eyes and ears on the world. Key sources of the guidance we need to operate in complex social and information ecosystems. Most of us have a handful of strong ties, close, trusted friends, but we can have hundreds of so called weak ties. For example, our Facebook friends. Weak ties have high value as multipliers of our attention capacity and as a source of tips for good shopping deals, job possibilities, and dating partners. Yeah, people back there screaming, man. I'm used to just peace. But anyways, it's the fourth, and we're just trying to enjoy this. Well, we were struggling through that last page. I ain't gonna lie. Trust me, I feel it. I was like, bro, what are we talking about, man? It's kind of choppy. When they were talking about the bits of information, that whole segment, nah. I'm leaving a review. This was rough. Where are we at? All right, about 40 minutes. Yeah, I got a little bit. Got a couple more pages. We're almost done. When we coordinate what we see and what we know, our efforts in tandem multiply our cognitive wealth. While at any given moment, our quota for working memory remains small, the total of data we can pull through that narrow width becomes huge. This collective intelligence, the sum total of what everyone in a distributed group can contribute, promises maximal focus, the summation of what multiple eyes notice. A research center at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology on collective intelligence sees the emerging capacity as abetted by the sharing of attention on the internet. The classic example, millions of websites cast their spotlight within narrow niches, and a web search selects and directs our focus so we can harvest all that cognitive work efficiently. The MIT group's basic question: how can we connect people and computers so that collectively we act with more intelligence than any one person or group? Or, as the Japanese say, all of us are smarter than any one of us. Do you love what you do? The big question. When you get up in the morning, are you happy about getting to work, school, or whatever it is that occupies your day? research by Harvard's Howard Gardner, Stanford's William Damon, and Claremont's Mahaley Sis Sis dude six vent Mahali. I'm not even gonna try to pronunciate that. It's C-I hold on. CSIKSVENTMIHALYI. So Mahaley, whoever that is. Okay. I think they're hiking Eagles Pass. Yeah, it's got to be people over at Eagles Pass right now. It's one of the highest peaks over here, and I just keep hearing screaming from the same like area, and I'm pretty sure it's this peak right here, but I can't see them. I can hear them, but I can't see them. So, anyways, zeroed in on what they call good work, a potent mix of what people are excellent at, what engages them, and their ethics, what they believe matters. Those are more likely to be high absorption callings. People love what they are doing. Full absorption and what we do feels good. And pleasure is the emotional marker for flow. People are in flow relatively rarely in daily life. Sampling people's moods at random reveals that most of the time people are either stressed or bored, with any occasional periods of flow. Only about 20% of people have flow moments at least once a day. About 15% of people never enter flow state during a typical day. One key to more flow in life, comes when we align what we do with what we enjoy, as is the case with those fortunate folks whose jobs give them great pleasure. High achievers in any field, the lucky ones anyway, have hit on this combination. Apart from a career change, there are several doorways to flow. One may open when we tackle a task that challenges our abilities to the maximum, a just manageable demand on our skills. Another entryway can come via doing what we are passionate about. Motivation sometimes drives us into flow, but either way, the final common pathway is full focus. These are each ways to ratchet up attention. No matter how you get there, a keen focus jumpstarts flow. This optimal brain state for getting work done well is marked by greater neural harmony, a rich, well timed interconnection among diverse brain areas. In this state, ideally, the circuits needed for the task at hand are highly active, while those irrelevant are quiescent. Quiescent. I don't even know what that is, bro. Quiescent. Quiescent. We got like double column of words today, boy. With the okay. In this state, ideally, the circuits needed for the task at hand are highly active, while those irrelevant are quiescent, with the brain precisely attuned to the demands of the moment. When our brains are in the zone, we are more likely to perform at our personal best, whatever our pursuit. Workplace surveys, though, find large numbers of people are in a very different brain state. They daydream, waste hours cruising the web on YouTube, and do the bare minimum required. Their attention scatters. Such disengagement and indifference are rampant, especially among repetitive, undemanding jobs. To get the disengaged workers any nearer the focus range demands upping their motivation and enthusiasm. In evoking a sense of purpose, and adding a dollop of pressure. On the other hand, another large group are stuck in the state of neuro stuck in a state neurobiologists call frazzle, where constant stress overloads their nervous system with floods of cortisol and adrenaline. Their attention fixates on their worries, not the job. This emotional exhaustion can lead to burnout. Full focus gives us a potential doorway into flow. But when we choose to focus on one thing and ignore the rest, we surface a constant tension, usually invisible, between a great neural divide where the top of the brain tussles with the bottom. Okay. As promised, we got to about the 40, 50 minute mark. And so we'll continue on with chapter three, attention, top and bottom, just as we started to get to. But we got a long ways to go in this book. Yeah, I don't know how many more days it's going to be. But yeah, there was a couple of moments in there where we were struggling. We had a couple of moments in there where we were just riding smooth, really motivated, really feeling it. But I think ultimately I was getting a little bit distracted with the background noise. So I might have to find a different spot. I think because it's the fourth where it is I live, I think we have a little bit more going on in the area. So it's a little bit distracting. Also, I think I'm gonna get a completely different notebook for whenever I start aviation school, or should I say flight ground school. That's an exciting time. But yeah, we're basically doing this series. If you made it this far, please drop a comment, leave a like, but drop the term aviation. And in short, we're just at a point in life where we've we've worked really hard to get to certain milestones, but um, still a very young man. You're gonna be old longer than you will be young, and so I'm still a young man. I turn 36 tomorrow, and this is how I spend my time, trying to be a little bit more productive, try to be a little bit more intentional with my time, reading up on focus because I need it. I'll be going back to college for the fourth time, it feels like. I did a little bit of college before the military, two different colleges, so I guess that's two right there. I got a degree while I was in, so that'll be a third attempt at college, and then I got my other degree last year, my bachelor's. So now I'm going for my second bachelor's in aviation and aerospace science. And it's going to require a lot of focus. So, what I'm actually doing is school doesn't start for another uh, probably 40 days, 50 days. But what I'm doing is I'm really just trying to hone in. Uh, you really can't rewire your brain, but I am trying to force myself to be more just more conditioned to the long hours of reading, the long hours of focus, the physical demand that I'm going to be under, you know, mind and body connection up in the air, trying to fight off air sickness, all the while juggling life as a parent and as a person just in a pursuit of a new chapter in life. So I'm really excited for what it is that I'm doing, and I'm hoping that I can motivate you all. I'm just trying to get to a new phase where I get back to loving life for what it is, and that I'm challenging myself each and every day. And so that is the goal. And ultimately, I think that's what I want for myself, and I think that's why I'm doing flying because flying requires not an Olympic level of focus, but it does every time you go up. It requires that you know your life is in your hands, and I like that analogy. You know, and I like that. I don't know if that's just where I'm at in life, where I'm just doing things. I feel like I always do things that kind of push myself to the edge. Not an adrenaline junkie, but I've done things many a times in my life where I've had to I've done it just to achieve. There's a book. It's called Enneagrams, and there's like 9 different personality traits, and I think I fall under the achiever. There's just a person who just does stuff just to be doing it. Like I have 2 degrees already that I'm not utilizing, and I'm perfectly fine with that. And I'm getting a third starting in the fall. And I will be applying that because that's going to be cool once I get my private pilot's license. And there might be some content that might come out of that. But, anyways, I want to wrap this up well under the hour mark. We want to keep these somewhat short and condensed. But, you know, um, what we got out of today's reading was flow state, zoning out, the importance of understanding that we still have the neural bandwidth and mental capacity to absorb and retain information. We just do it differently. Um, it's we have collective information. I thought the quote was really good. Was all of us together is better than one of us individually or something like that. It was an old Japanese phrase. I'll see if I can find it real quick. But I think I mean, it kind of goes without saying, but it's still a good phrase nonetheless. All of us are smarter than any one of us. Yep. So, yeah. Um, yeah. Eventually I'll get a better rhythm in how we do these and how we accomplish these. But I think just chipping away one chapter at a time, it's a lot harder when I'm in front of a screen and having to be a little bit more upbeat, having to be a little bit more attentive to hand gestures and how I present the information. Because there was definitely some chunks where even in my own head it would have been hard to read. But yeah, this is the offline series. Hopefully you guys appreciate it. Shout out to Daniel Goleman, the hidden driver of excellence. You know, yep. It's funny how life works. You know, I you make one decision in life, and it's funny how that can dictate how it is you go forward. I was an airman once for the Air Force. Now I'm just an airman for the sky. You know, uh, maybe that'll be me learning to fly. But yeah, I'm enjoying this offline series. It's cool. Because by the time you guys see this, we'll be so much further along. To be unrecognizable, and that's the beauty of doing this. So, anyways, I'm Chaz. You've been chastised. I hope you guys enjoy this. It is what it is, man. You know, content. Life is content, man. So you better get on it. You better just start annotating. You know, and surprise people with it. That's the beauty of it is that you work while you're working. I'm gonna be doing this anyways. Why not document it? And in turn get AdSense for it or support or super chats or other people supporting the process, even though they're late. They may be motivated to be like, oh damn, he took 30 days out of his life to do this. So that's the goal. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your time. It's a beautiful day today. I'm gonna get out of the way. I kind of ate up a lot of the sunset, but I thought it would be cool to have a little bit of a silhouette. But yeah, happy July 4th. Yeah, man, 250. Big USA. All right, y'all. Peace.